Yeah, I finally put together some review thoughts on the FotoPro E7 Eagle Series carbon fiber tripod and gimbal head combination that I got about a month ago. In this video, I'm going to give you my thoughts on that, go over some of the ways that I use the tripod. Also going to cover a compare and contrast and some things to think about versus other tripods. And also I'll get into what beginners might want to think about when they're purchasing a tripod. So here we've got some specs on the FotoPro E7, and also I've included some specs on the Really Right Stuff TVC-3X that I'll talk about later. That's the first serious tripod that I had. For the FotoPro E7, we're looking at carbon fiber. It's a 4-section tripod. The minimum height from the ground is 4.5 inches. Maximum height 57.5 inches. Folded height 22 inches, and then the maximum circumference is about 11 inches on top and about 8.5 inches on the bottom, and it's weighing in at 3 pounds 14 ounces. Also in this video, I'm going to go ahead and cover some of the different styles of heads that I use, as you can see here, and I'm going to wrap it up just showing some of the pics I've taken off of it, and actually cover a section on Pano's panoramic stitching of photos. So this is a long video. I'm going to put some indexing down below so you'll be able to jump around and get to something that's hopefully useful for you if you certainly don't have the amount of time to watch this whole thing through. Also happy to take any comments on it. If you disagree with me on things, let me know. If you have a better way to do it, certainly let me know in the comments. I'd love to consider all thoughts on this stuff. So here we go. So I want to show you real quick how this E7 is packaged. Comes in a nice little case, shoulder strap on there, handle straps. I could see this really being nice for traveling. I mean, that is a nice tight container for the gimbal head and the tripod on a plane. So I could see that possibly working. It's a nice packaging. But this is how she comes. Get your tripod in this separate compartment, and as you can see, the gimbal head detached, just straps right in, no problem, as you'd expect. They ship it, like I said earlier, with the extra feet, just rubber housing feet to go over the spikes that are on there. So 3 extras come with it. They send a nice universal Arca style plate to attach to the lens foot if you need to, or your camera. Don't use that. And they send it with, a videoing handle, which I haven't used yet, probably won't use, but they obviously want you to be able to take advantage of this for some smooth video. So yeah, that's it. I mean, just packaged up real nice, real clean, and very nice equipment so far. Yeah. Pretty light with shoulder strap. Well, I've been putting this review video off for a while. Thought I'd finally just try to knock it out inside here. A little strange, I imagine, but I thought the sound would be better and I wouldn't be squinting so much from the sun. I wanted to take you through my first impressions on the FotoPro Eagle E7 tripod and gimbal head combination. I've had it for a few weeks now and really think it's a great piece of equipment. A little different than some of the other tripods I've used. Started out, all the machining, the fit and finish looks really good in this thing. Feels very solid. We went over the specs earlier. We've got a 4-section carbon fiber leg with markings on the bottom, strangely enough, to adjust your height if you have things pre-programmed in your mind, etc. I think I would have probably put the marking probably on this section. That's where I tend to do a little bit of adjustment, be it right or wrong. Nobody wants to bend over and do this adjustment, so you'd almost have to put those markings to use, at least in my mind. You'd have to have something in mind or earlier, not sure. We knock these out, simple quarter turn, just like other tripods I've used. So real solid there. I'll see if I can get in here a little closer. Some of the other things that I've noticed about it and like, we've got this, it comes with this self-leveling bowl already. So you didn't have to get this after the fact like I did my other tripod. Very easy to adjust with your level being right on top, bubble level nice and big that you can see. So we can make, minor adjustments without having to mess with the legs, which is really nice. This is a gimbal head, obviously. It looks like one very small gimbal head by design. This is something that I think you'd use certainly with a something smaller than a 500 f4. If we had something bigger than a 500 f4, I would suggest going to the full Wimberley, WH200 gimbal. A full size gimbal would be the way to go. I don't think it would work quite so well on here. This works pretty good for the setups I have right now, but there is the biggest drawback I'd see for using a larger lens with this is there's limited room for vertical travel here to adjust this, and your pivot point here sits really low on the lens. So it feels to me like this arm being so short, we really need this to be higher, and there's just nothing we can do about it. There's no adjustments for that. So, works well, like I say, with what I'm using, but a 500, I would go with something different. It is a gimbal head, but it's weird because they want to use it for video, want you to be able to use it for video also. Kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. It does come with a video arm that we can attach on this thing. I haven't yet, we put it right in here. And you'll notice the motion or the movement is pretty stiff actually. That's all the way open. And it's pretty stiff by design. Again, though, it's not exactly a fluid head, but they want it to operate like a fluid head. So some people may or may not like that. I mean, once you get some weight on there and a good sized lens, it's easy to move around, but it's not, free travel that I'm used to with other gimbal heads. Some of the other features on this tripod and head, we've got an Arca Swiss style cradle here. No surprise there. Like I said, we can. One thing that is nice is we can go ahead and take off the actual cradle. Not sure the real term for that, but we're left with Arca Swiss attachment connection here, and with an L bracket, as I'll show a little bit later here, on your body, you can put your camera on there no problem in any orientation. So that's actually very nice and convenient. And you've just got this small piece, good for packing too. You can take this off if you'd like for travel. Get that back on there. These knobs are a little bit funny. It's a precautionary measure, but you can't see it, I'm sure, but it's got a little push button detent here, so you can't give it much of a turn without pushing it in. Just a safety latch feature. Interesting. Another thing we've got is, you see a lot of knobs here, obviously. Your typical knob here to go ahead and lock down your motion, your 360 motion. We've also got this little, I guess I'd call it an indexing knob. And what that does is when we turn this in, you'll hear an audible click at about, 5 degrees. And you can feel it. So that's great with a Pano. Some Panos, doesn't work with all, depends on how far away you are, what lens you have on, etc., what you want your overlap to be. But it can be nice. I give them a little bit of a knock here because you see a lot finer graduation here. I think they could have made that click a little bit finer, honestly, and it'd be possibly a little bit more useful. When I'm doing panels, I found that I don't really use it to a rare circumstance that it works out just how I want to do the overlap. I tend to overlap, a lot more than most people probably. What else we got? We've got this push button. If we undo the bottom one, this is a neat feature. This will actually let you rotate. There's 45 degrees, there's 90 degrees, and that's useful for a camera. If you don't want to carry a rail with you, you can get a little bit closer to your no parallax point, or your nodal point as it's called. By moving that camera back, you can get your lens over this pivot point, and it works a lot better for panels, especially complicated panels if you have something close in the scene. So that's interesting. And we can also use this, I want to say, for nighttime photography. You know, there's a lot of functionality with that, moving like that, and it locks right into place and you lock it down. So that's, again, nice, and I think that would work good for travel. We can knock this thing completely down if you want to take this off. There's a lot of ways to get that pretty compact. We've got your typical, well, not typical to me, but hook here to put your bag on for some support weight. What else? We've got, these in a little bit. We've got a ring here that I've put a couple of Peak Design quick tabs on for a shoulder strap. I like to shoulder this thing when I'm walking out there. I can show that a little bit later, but this is actually a nice feature that seems like not all tripods have, to attach something to it. Like I say, the fit and finish is real good. This is real firm here. Let's roll this in and I'll show you. So here, a little bit different than my other tripods or than my Really Right Stuff. These don't go in by themselves. They're not really spring loaded, so you have to, manually move those. No big deal. But you've got your normal 3 positions that you would expect. This thing, be it that there's no center column, which I really love, we can get this, I want to say 4.5 inches from the ground. So you carry this tripod, you can get literally right on the ground for birds in the water, shorebirds, etc. I guess the other thing I can mention real quick, since we're right here, let me just close this down a little bit. Again, pretty quick close, just like any good tripod, are these rubber feet, and they actually pop off, and you've got these claw feet here. I haven't tried them yet, haven't used them. I would, when I saw this rubber foot just doesn't screw on or anything, it just pops on there. I thought, wow, that's gonna be gone. And they actually send, like we saw earlier, they send 3 extras in the bag, but they do seem to stay in place. I've used this for a couple weeks now, I haven't lost one yet, but they might go eventually. Let's back up here. If you're wondering, this covering that I put on these upper segments is a bicycle cork covering. Got that idea from Hudson Henry, great photographer, great instructor. I'd recommend you check out his site, hudsonhenry.com. A lot of useful, good videos, but it's just a really bicycle handlebar cork tape, I think it's called. I don't know, $10 a roll, something like that, but it's got a little bit of depth to it there, and just wrap it around there, finish it off with gaff tape. Pretty simple, cheap, and what I like about it versus just buying the others, and I've bought the foam, I've tried the pipe insulator with tape around it, I've tried pretty much everything else, and the other stuff's just thick and bulky and adds a lot of bulk to the tripod in my mind. I haven't put this through a lot of use yet though, so we'll see, but it'll definitely help with the cold, and gives you just a little bit of padding, but most importantly protects that segment of carbon when you're out walking somewhere and maybe banging through stuff, brush, or in the car even. Let's go ahead and get camera up on this thing so we can see how it looks. The best way to show it. I'll give you an example of what I'm using. I've got a D850 here, Nikon D850. This is the 500 PF lens, my favorite wildlife combo right now. I've replaced the Nikon foot with, I think this is a Really Right Stuff foot, but it's an Arca Swiss style. Why Nikon doesn't just send them that way is beyond me. We lock that in. I happen to know that for the best balancing that I go all the way forward to the actual caption lock, and I have the cradle all the way down. Again, there's not a lot of movement there, so it just doesn't help. And here you can see kind of what I was talking about earlier. Usually when you're balancing a gimbal, your pinpoint, your fulcrum point, should be kind of higher on the lens most generally, and this is where I think we'd really struggle with a bigger lens. We just can't we just can't get up where we need to be. This, when I do loosen it, we do stay balanced, you know, pretty well actually. So that's nice. I've got this L bracket on here, so I don't have a lot of capability to travel here, which is okay, you know, for mammals and things like that. But if I want to get a bird in a tree or something like that, or a bird flies over, you know, I'm kind of stuck with this setup. One thing that I can do with this setup is if I do think I'm going to be working higher, I can go ahead and loosen this bottom, kick it back to the 45-degree point, and then I've got a lot more range before I hit. But then I lose the range on the front end. But that's a pretty quick adjustment. I didn't have to take the camera off, no big deal. If I'm doing bird in flight, I'm usually off the tripod. Anyways, I'd take it off and hang it on the shoulder strap and just work freehand with that. So that's how she looks on there. I could say I'd more likely use it up like that. Again, just so you can hopefully get a good view of that. We got pretty good balance with this setup. And this has got a lot of ass weight to it. I've got this battery pack on here to pick up the extra 2 frames per second, and I've got this L bracket. So that adds a lot of weight to the body that's a little bit abnormal and a little bit of a pain using with a short, relatively lighter lens. Luckily, I can get that forward enough that it will go ahead and sit there. Let's see. Let me go ahead and let's try the, but again, you can see, I can give you an example here, just good free movement. It's no problem. It's at a really good height for me. I like it a lot, you know, very steady, rock steady. Now I've chosen to put this on this side versus your more typical, you know, left side, but that gets in the way of a lot of my camera controls if I want to get to them. You know, being able to turn the lens, I can handle that a little bit better, and vision. You know, I can come off camera and I've got just a completely clear line of sight here, whereas if this was over there, you know, it'd be a little bit in the way, not as much as a traditional gimbal, but it's still nicer over here, and it also just kind of works better with this L bracket. This sticks out the farthest on the camera, so if it's on this side, I hit a little bit more. Just works good over here. Let's go ahead and throw another setup on there, pretty typical Nikon setup. Let's see how this one goes. This is the D500 and paired with the 200 to 500 Nikon, all right, core lens. You know, very common wildlife setup. Let's see, I'm just guessing here. I haven't used this one. This one, I've not been able to really balance well. You'd have to tighten the friction up a little bit, and that's kind of a negative if you're using something in a pure gimbal sense. You shouldn't have to do that. But again, I think the biggest reason is that I'm just sitting up too high. I'm not able to get this where it needs to be to make that balance happen. I can move it forward and back, but I can't give it any vertical movement. So this one will crash if I were to let go of it without tightening it on there. I haven't been able to figure it out yet anyways, a good balance point, and I have monkeyed with it a bit. And actually I have that lens way in. Obviously that'll change when we extend the lens. So, you know, we got to give it back there even more. So that might be a detractor for some if you want a more pure gimbal use of this combination. This might not be the best one for that, because I just don't think you can get it good and balanced personally. But I've got her locked in there and it works. So just so you can see that. So extending a little bit into some of the ways I use things, not exactly a tripod review, but part of the tripod and why I'm set up the way I am. I've got this hold fast sling. There's all kinds of slings. Peak Design has them, all kinds of manufacturers, but this is a new one to me. I really like it. Normally I would shoulder or carry this D850 500 combination on a sling down by my side. Probably can't see that there. Rides real good. It originally came, the hold fast did with some differing connection points here that I really don't like. They're just kind of big and bulky. They're just more than you need in my opinion. One's supposed to be able to attach it to your side, and the other is the actual attachment for the camera, and it comes with this typical screw-in attachment for your lens foot, which I don't like. So I took all this off, robbed the connection that I was using off of one of the other straps, which is much more simple. I think that was off the Sport, Rapid Sport, I want to say, Black Rapids. And what I did is I went ahead and put on a Really Right Stuff, since I have the Really Right Stuff lens foot, I put on the Really Right Stuff quick connection on that. Just push the button, pop it in and out, right under the foot, no problem. In the actual loop itself, I've got this little backup cable, little nylon tether with another Really Right Stuff quick release that goes into the other side of my L bracket. So I know it's probably not the best to see, but I leave this L bracket on the camera at all times and the battery pack, the whole thing. It is a little bit bigger than a lot of people would like to carry around, but I like to be able to do everything pretty much effortlessly, and I think this is the setup that I can do that with. I've got this L bracket secured to the bottom, and it also secures to the actual camera body itself, where the normal ring would be. So I feel like I've got a couple of good connection points. It seems like if any one thing broke, this camera wouldn't hit the ground. This L bracket couldn't come off without ripping out two different points. Even if the battery pack were to come loose, I'd still be attached to the body. If this ring broke off, which they do, if this thing were to break, she's still not gonna hit the ground, hopefully, because I've got this tether on here just as an emergency to save it. So that works really good for me, and that's pretty simple. I mean, it's a pretty light, quick connection. And it, you know, travels real well. I'm actually, I have ordered just a Really Right Stuff, what do you say, oval quick detention clamp, which hopefully will allow me to even get rid of, you know, this thing, because I never detach it that way anyways. Hopefully that'll slide in this strap well, and that'll skinny it down even more. So what I like about that is obviously I can use it, I walk around that way, but then I'm just that quick off and back up onto the tripod, or vice versa. I mean, I don't have to do anything. If I want to, you know, throw a different lens on there, throw a different lens on, and now I'm on my my L bracket. If I just take off the L bracket that's on the tripod. Now, I'll show that now. So anyways, take that back off, throw that right back onto my shoulder strap. You know, if I'm standing somewhere and I'm doing some bird in flight, and I'll stand there like this. I'll stand there with it ready to go and pop it up, just no problem. So I'm not restricted by that tripod use. But you know, ducks are coming in the water or something, and I want to go ahead and take advantage of the tripod, or if I'm there early, you know, and it's dark, I'm going to be up on the tripod just like that and ready to roll. Okay, so now I'm going to show you an example of the short lens on here, or shorter lens. Put an 85mm on my Nikon D850. Just want to show you what I would do. I would get rid of the cradle so we can hook the camera with the L bracket up directly anywhere I want, you know, position it vertically. Get it down a little bit, there we go. So anywhere I want, we've got, you know, room to go ahead and move that thing. Actually, move it up a little bit more. If I wanted to angle it, I could, you know, good motion, no problem. She's on there. Just that simple. Just taking off the L bracket, taking advantage of my L bracket, I should say, taking off the cradle. If I want to go vertical, what do we do? Just undo it, I'd spin it around, flip the camera, and I'm ready to go vertical. Now with my controls up here, I'm in there. Just that simple. And that's what I love about the L bracket. It's ready to go. One, it's how I carry my camera securely, because I do a lot of walking around with that 500mm, you know, small lens. But two, it's just with that L bracket, I'm up on top of this tripod easy. And again, as we were talking about earlier, if I want to go ahead and do a pano, let me get that looking a little bit more level, yeah. I can knock this thing back 45 degrees. And now you can see how we've moved the lens back over the pivot point. What I don't like about this is that I'm now not centered on the tripod though, so that's not ideal. I would tend to use a rail with this anyways. Now, you would be centered without the battery pack. If I just took that D8 or the D500 there, I'd be all set with no battery pack on, but I'm not taking this battery pack off, so I'd prefer just to have a rail with me. I don't show that right now, but if you don't have a battery pack, you're gonna be centered, you know, perfectly over the tripod and be able to rock back to get you into that no parallax point a little bit better. And I think you could play with this. You know, this isn't, you can adjust this. You don't have to go fully to the 45 degrees. You know, you can adjust this to a little bit to give you a little bit of depth travel. And you know, you have all that worked out in advance. Your no parallax point, where it is per lens. And you know, jot that down how you have to configure your camera, and you're going to be good to go. Most panels, you don't have to worry, you know, if there's nothing too close to you anyways. If it's just something, you know, out there in the distance, you're going to be fine, not worrying about that too bad. But this is where the bowl comes in handy too, because, you know, it's a pain in the ass to constantly be adjusting our legs when we're out there and worrying about trying to get that level. It's just a real quick thing, you know, being able to use this bowl that comes on here. And it tightens down beautifully. And honestly, like I say, what I like about the way they did this was they put the adjustment for the bowl or the clamp on the side versus underneath, which I'll show you on a tripod later. Just doesn't get in the way. It's easy to get to. There's just nothing there. I don't really see a flaw in that, and everything seems very solid. Give you an example real quick of the nodal rail. Use with this if you wanted to use one. Again, I think, you know, I'd shoot straight up if I want to. I think honestly, I could probably shoot straight down. Let's see, get that rocked. Yeah, or pretty close to straight down. I've got the complications with this. I'd have to flip it to the other side. I've got complications with my L bracket on there, but you get the point. I mean, that's close enough for straight down if I was working low, you know, on macros and stuff. It work out real nice. So that's a nice little feature built right in there, and it is solid. Let's see, let's put the nodal rail on, show that approach. So to do that, I'll just say, hey, we stay with the normal configuration with the cradle in there. And it has a caption, so it locks down, but again, just lock it in there. And we're back to the cradle. It's actually a pretty nice rail with a Arca style clamp on the back, so I can get back, you know, and go vertical this way. Like that. I'm just doing that quick, but that'll give me, you know, a lot of travel on this rail. And now the benefit of that is I can leave my battery pack on. Tighten that. I can leave the battery pack on. Now I'm back in my center point because the battery is able to hang out there, but I'm right over center, and now I can control this forward and back to hit the nodal point, or no parallax point. Let me put it how I would basically normally have that. Slipped off on me. You know, again, I'd have these pre-marked, but I can move the rail forward and back and the camera forward and back, so I can get this thing, you know, right where I want for that nice clean pano. That's just some final thoughts on using this particular tripod. Like I said earlier, let me collapse it down and show you. I really like it with the no column, obviously, because it's stable. You know, center columns, you love them or hate them. I don't particularly like it, having a center column, so it's nice without, in my mind. Like I said, this thing will go right to ground level. It just, you can't beat it. Very stiff, these legs. But just so you can see, that literally will lay flat on the ground. I'm not gonna put that down on there so you can see, but that'll lay pretty flat to the ground, about 4 inches up. Get your camera on there, lay down, you're ready to go. So that'd save you carrying some stuff. You know, you have to have a plate with you or something to carry out on the ground. Just have the tripod. As far as traveling with it, yes, you know, a lot of times we'll put the camera, you know, once the camera's on it, I'm picking it up and moving it, or I'm, you know, doing what you're not supposed to and having it over the shoulder. But other times when I think the action could happen fast, if I'm walking out of the, you know, long walks at the marsh, I've got it on the strap. And I don't like having to carry a tripod and lay it down, so that's what I'm using this Peak Design, just simple strap for. Again, I have these Peak Design clips on there, quick clips. I normally would just leave this strap right on here, really never take it off. And I just shoulder it, you know. This thing's pretty light and out of the way that way. So literally, I do go over the head and over the shoulder, tuck it down to the side, and move it around. You can move your gimbal wherever you want so it's not in the way. But then I've still got complete access, you know, to my camera. I don't have to lay this tripod down to the dirt or grab it every time a bird takes off and I want to shoot it. I'm there ready to go. So this is how I really like to travel with it when I can. And she just wraps up nice. Very nice tripod overall. I think it's solid. The fit and finish is great. I do believe, as I recall seeing somewhere, yeah, it's made in China, so that could be a turnoff for some people. And they're pretty expensive. But when you start buying something that, you know, as a gimbal head and can do some other things, operate a little bit like a fluid head, is better than any ball head could ever be. Once I take this cradle off, I can, with an L bracket on my camera, commission this thing fully into a lot of different uses. I get to the ground with it, and it's pretty stable. Even having the 4 leg segments, it's pretty solid. Again, if I had a 500 f4 or something that big, I'd probably move up to a heavier tripod. You could get away with this tripod weight, I think, for sure, but I'd rather have a different gimbal on there. So if I had a bigger lens, I probably would buy, you know, either a different tripod or this tripod, probably without this gimbal. You can buy them separate. And take this head off. And I would want something like a full-size Wimberley, you know, on there personally. I just think you'd have a lot better time, you know, balancing that head like it's supposed to be. Anyways, that's the E7. It's not even on their website yet. Pretty sure I got this one on Joe Brady's website, and I like it. Okay, now I'm going to go into, I guess, comparing the tripods a little bit, and basically in an effort to save some people that are brand new to this, possibly save them some money and not go through some of the moves I have, or at least just explain my thoughts on some of the differences in the tripods and the heads. Definitely not an expert. I've just had these had tripod use for a bit, and I use them probably more than some people do. This is a Really Right Stuff. I want to say I bought this back in 2012. This is a TVC-3X. I'm not sure they make that model anymore. The stats are this is only 3 sections of legs. Same quarter turn. This is the tripod I just reviewed. Bigger around. These are 1.5 inch diameter at the top. I think this one was 1.25 inch as I recall. Stands a little bit taller, this particular model. And I have put in now, again, after looking at Hudson Henry's stuff and some of his recommendations, I've actually going to give this 75mm bowl a try. So this is just a replacement bowl, kind of a knockoff. I'll put some links in there. But again, just for adjustability, I didn't buy it with the bowl originally, and that was one of the pains, leveling the tripod constantly. A bowl, to me, just seems to make a heck of a lot more sense for that final 15 degrees, you know, or so worth of adjustment. I bought this tripod originally, like I say, it didn't have the bowl, I just had a flat cap with a hook under it on there, but at least it was something I bought that was, you know, that you could replace. You could take it out. There was 2 options of buying it. Luckily I bought it. So you can put a replacement bowl in. But I also bought it with their D850 ball head. Very heavy duty, probably one of the best ball heads out there from everything I've read and watched, and I have no reason to doubt that. It's a great ball head. It's just that ball heads really aren't great. I'm finding out through use and a lot more reading and watching videos. Their ball head is good quality, but the problem with the ball head is, you lose level every time you loosen up the adjustment. You're kind of stuck being on a level, and that can be a problem for any kind of panning. If we want to pan and do video, I've got to constantly level up my camera, and that's just a real pain. So that's the problem with a ball head as is. So I'm going to be looking at getting a fluid head. It hasn't gotten here yet, but I do have a different fluid head, Miopta, cheaper fluid head. But again, the fluid head, I think I'm going to give this a good size run, even with my 500 millimeter PF, short 500 lens there, because I think it won't be resistant enough that I will still be able to use that, and I'll be able to keep the level on that. So I'll probably do an update video once I get that other fluid head and show up what to use. But I honestly think the fluid head may even be better than this gimbal, because with the setup I have, with the L bracket and the battery and just the size of it, I'm running into, like I showed you, I'm running into some points where I hit and have to make special accommodations with the fluid head. Everything's sitting on top of there. When I get this set up, I want it. I'm gonna have a ton of range, and this honestly operates like a fluid head. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if it feels like it balances well, if I can get the tension set right so it doesn't feel like it's gonna flop and will pretty much stay in place. If I can get that, then I honestly think the fluid head's gonna be hard to beat for my smaller setup. Now, for the other setup, the 500 and the longer 2 to 500, remember we couldn't get that balanced real well on here. That's what I've mainly been using for the longest time before I got this other camera, is this Wimberley Sidekick, which a lot of you I'm sure know about that, but we just take our ball head, flip it down the notch, lock it down, then this Wimberley Sidekick literally just slides into your ball head. Get that open, slides in to your clamp, I should say, in your ball head, clamp or shut. There's some debate on whether or not you should use a clamp style or the turn style if the clamp's firm enough. I think these two have been compatible. I've never had it fall out. There's a caption lip on top, so it really couldn't fall out. It'd have to come out, so I think we're good to go there. And then I'll just throw the 2 to 500 in there that, again, we had trouble balancing with before. The difference with the Sidekick, if you haven't used one, is you just put your lens foot to the side, lock it down, turn around so we can see here, lock it down, and then we just lock our camera up in there, or lens foot I should say. Get it locked. Again, I haven't used this in a while, we gotta get it balanced. I'm gonna bring her back. Check my balance. Actually, that feels pretty good. It's wide open. She's staying put. Again, I would have an index or witness mark. I'd know exactly where that has to go. It's just been a while since I've used it. It will change, obviously, if we want to bring this lens in, but I'm always using it full open. But this is more of a traditional, wimble. There's no friction on the movement. It's all light movement. And it stays where I want it to stay. I mean, and that's gonna really help you if you're working on a bird in a tree. You wanna be able to have your hand off the thing and have it be there so it doesn't cost you a shot, it doesn't come down enough, it slams, it's ready to go. You can get away with tightening it, but you really shouldn't have to, and you don't have to on this. So this is nice because, again, it sits up higher. You can see how I'm more in the middle of my lens. The downfall on this, though, is, again, on this Wimberley Sidekick, we don't have any vertical change. We can't raise it up like you can. They're a true wimble head, which I probably will end up getting. But this probably would work, for most setups, most 500s. It certainly works for this. So if you've got the Nikon D500 and the 2 to 500, the Sidekick will work with any ball head you have. Any ball head you have that will actually turn into the side and lock in. You're good to go, and it's a cheaper route. So that's a good use for it. And I like it. I mean, this is obviously too tall for me. I have to take the legs down. I can, you know, level the ball. I can level everything with now the bowl if I need to. So that's nice. Get my legs set and I'm ready to go. So that's good use. But like I say, this might not go on here. Once I get that fluid head, we might just leave the fluid head on there. It's nice if this turns so loose, but a lot of times, again, for bird and flight, I'm usually freehanding it. If I do want to use a tripod, and I have, on long days especially, it is nice that it moves that easy. And that we can still lock it down anywhere we want. So that's good use for it. And as far as these two tripods go, the Really Right Stuff is a bigger tripod. It's more firm with the segments, with the actual 3-leg segments versus the 4. It's a little bit heavier. It does feel a little bit more secure. I would use some weight on that, and now I'd have to use the rock bag because I don't have a hook on here anymore, that I put this bowl in here. I'd use this actual rock bag. Not sure if you can see that. Cheap, 10, 15 bucks as I recall. Just Velcros around your legs. You can leave it right on when you close it. You can use it to throw your phone in, a lens in, anything you want, throw in that. But most importantly, if you're out on a scene somewhere, you don't have to carry weight with you. You're not even your backpack. I rarely take mine. But you gotta find a rock or something like that, a rock, brick, you name it. Throw that in there and that'll give you a little bit of weight. Not an incredible amount of weight, and you don't wanna pull too much on the legs, but a lot of guys are using these, and it's kind of a nice option to give you that extra stability. So I guess if I had to boil down my recommendations to somebody that's just getting started, or has worked on photography a while and wants to upgrade their tripod, want to do a bunch of research on the tripods, get the most bang for your buck that you can, but really, you know, buy the best tripod you can afford to buy, I would say. Carbon is nice, it won't dent like the aluminum. It's strong, it's light, it's more expensive. If you do get the tripod, a little more carbon, you want to go ahead and protect your upper segments of your legs, a little more comfortable to carry on the shoulder, a little bit more comfortable in the cold to handle, and it'll just take care of it. This tripod, you know, I've used it a lot, and when I took the last wrapping off there, the legs look like new. I mean, they're in really good shape. As far as the heads go, I personally would not recommend a ball head. I would say before you go ahead and buy a ball head, do some look into at least a fluid head, and if not that, a gimbal. Obviously, depending on the type of photography you do, there's really not one thing that will work for everything, unfortunately. So I haven't found it yet. Close to working for everything, you know, could be a gimbal style, or actually probably a fluid head style, I think, could work for everything. Especially with an L bracket on your camera. And I think I'm gonna do another video on that once I get that set up, because I just can't see it not working for anything I want. Now, would it balance a 500 on there? Probably not. You'd probably need a big, heavy gimbal or fluid head. And again, your pure birders and people that want to use a gimbal really probably don't like the sound of using a fluid head at all, because there is that tension of movement and you want to be much more free with it. But I'm gonna go ahead and give it a try, because I think it's gonna hit a sweet spot for the middle to smaller size camera setups that I use. I don't have a big lens. The 500 PF is the biggest I'm using, and that setup, you know, or actually the 200 to 500 would be probably the biggest, heaviest setup I have, and that's not big by any stretch. So that barely, you know, needs a gimbal, honestly. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and give that a try on the fluid head. And like I say, do the research on it. Don't discount the ability of the fluid head till you see it. And like I say, I'll get another video out there, because I kind of opened my eyes up to it, especially once I got this gimbal, which I love this setup. I love this tripod and head. But I'm always looking for really the best, optimal, easiest use. And I think the fluid head might have this beat. This operates a little bit like a fluid head, like I said, because it's just a little stiffer by design. so we have smooth motion when we're doing video. And it is smooth, it is nice. I got a good friend that's using one, and he's putting together some incredible video. I think I'll probably post or put some in the end of this video. Just some of the uses, the photography and videos I've done with this so far. So it's a real nice setup, but I would look at those things if I were looking at a tripod, looking to get a new tripod, I should say. I don't think one particular thing will work the best for everything. So for what that's worth, thanks. So as promised, I'm going to do a quick section on panos here, panoramic stitching, and get into why we'd want to do those. I'm at the Felician Sisters in Livonia, Michigan. I come here just to test panos. Really, it's just a nice, big, sprawling, beautiful building, but it's a little bit of a tight space, so I can't get way back. And I went and did a pano here that we'll get into the particulars now, just waiting for these sprinklers to shut down, or at least move over a section so I can get in there and make this pano. So why do we make panos? I think the primary reason would be that we're looking to make a big print, and we want better resolution than we can get out of one frame. Here I just have a picture taken with my iPhone this morning, and we're limited in size that we can, obviously, of the building, the amount of the building that we can fit in. So we'll go with multi-frames to fit in the entire building. We could go with a wide lens, but again, we're going to get distortion, and we're still going to be limited on the print quality of that image versus stitching together several panos. Here you can see that we can do a pano with our phone, but again, the quality generally just suffers. And if we want to make really big prints, we're going to have to use our other equipment. So to create this test pano, to try out this new tripod, I'm using my Nikon D850 with an 85mm lens. I do have a little Wimberley, I think it's called an M8, just a little slide that lets me extend the camera back so I don't hit, and I can go vertical. That keeps me over the center point, pivoting center of the tripod, and I also have the camera, I guess I scooched back to where I had worked at home, and that looks like a pretty good spot for the no parallax point, so we don't get distortion. Though again, in this panorama, I shouldn't have really need to worry about that. I have nothing close in the image. I went with 85mm because that's there's some trees. There's a lot of trees now that are growing up around this, and you probably could see them in the video. There's a lot of trees that don't allow me to get back, and I've got pavement there, etc. So I felt this give me a little bit in the foreground and give me a little bit of the sky in a pretty good way without doing too much cropping, as we'll see in this next image. So there's a lot of good videos out there on how to properly shoot a pano and stitch it together. So this isn't going to be real comprehensive on that. Just some highlights would be that you want to set everything you can in manual mode, especially your ISO. You don't want that exposure floating around when you're ripping off this series of frames. So you got to go ahead and get everything in manual. I would expose for the brightest area of your scene. Get that set up how you want it, lock it in, and then make sure your tripod's level, obviously, and go back and take your series of shots with a lot of overlap, minimally a third overlap, but I've heard people use as much as 40, 50, 60% overlap with the theory that, one, it's going to be a little easier for the program to stitch in a real good way, and two, the center of most lenses seem to produce the best sharpness, so you're given the software the advantage of using the sharpest area, hopefully, and bringing that together. In this one, I took particular care to go ahead and make sure that I started with the camera and the tripod indexed and positioned, so it was at the center point. So meaning you can see frame 6 here is in the center of the building. So I made sure that it would pan through in a good way at that point, and I was using the index notifications that I talked about earlier on this tripod, so it would click and stop. So I use that. If you don't have that, then you just have to control it manually how much you overlap. So I started and ripped off a series of 12 shots here. Pretty big pano in my mind, just a single row.
And as you can see, the each individual, this is a full frame camera, the D850, each individual shot was about 5,500 pixels by 8,200. And if I just times that by 12, I'm dealing with a comprehensive potential of 66,000 by the same 8,200. So you can start to see right away what's going to happen. I took this thing into Photoshop, and by the time I got it stitched together and did a little bit of cropping, it ended up at, call it 37,000 pixels by 7,700. And that way at 300 dots per inch would translate to 123 inches by 25 inches. So I can make a really good photo 10 foot by 2 foot with this series, this panel. Just another thing worth mentioning would be that it makes a lot of sense to have at least mirror up on your camera to avoid shake. Use a cable release, or just use a built-in timer if your camera has one. Mine, I put it on a 2-second exposure delay, and did it that way to avoid any camera shake on this thing. You do have to balance the speed with the moving clouds and with the changing scene, wind blowing trees, that kind of thing. So if you have any of that stuff or anything moving in the frame, speed is of the essence. And even just changing light, the sun was coming up in this shot, and it was changing. So you want to get through the panel pretty quickly, the series. And as a lot of guys will say, I like to, on a series like this, take a shot of my hand or something, at the start of it and at the end of it. That just helps when you get back into Lightroom or Photoshop, wherever you're stitching this together, so you can see the series. And that's a good way to keep them straight. But anyways, I was real happy with how this panel turned out, at least how the sequence went, how it looked on the computer. So I did decide to just for completeness here, to go ahead and have one printed. I have no real particular use or place, I should say, to put this panel. But heck, maybe I'll donate it to the church itself. They can hang it somewhere. But let's take a look at that now. So I went ahead and had this. I printed it at a place called Printastic.com. They do banners. They do other printing too. It's the first time I've used them, but this banner was pretty cheap. It was $50 to get this printed, $10 to have it shipped to me. So I just wanted it as a proof of concept to go ahead and see this thing printed and see how it would turn out. I was a little reluctant to go with them because they told me on these banners they only print at 150 dots per inch. It's all their printer will do on that material, supposedly. And I wanted a 300 dot per inch print. I don't know if they make prints that big elsewhere at 300 DPI. I thought that would be the case, but anyways, they said trust us, it'll turn out, it'll look good. So I sent them a big size file, gave it to them, and they got it turned around real quick. This thing's really nice. I was really impressed with the quality of this. I mean, when you get back from it, it looks great. I got up close and look at it, and it looks great. I mean, it's very detailed print, and it's only, like I say, 150 DPI, which you shouldn't have to use, a lot more than that, they claim, on big prints. The farther you get away, the viewing, you don't need that extensive of dot per inch, supposedly. But nonetheless, I wanted to see, how this would turn out, and it turned out pretty good. This is on a nylon material, I want to say banner material, and it's got grommets in it. It's pretty durable, pretty nice way just to test the thing. Like I say, I've got nowhere for this thing. I'll probably just take it over there to the church and see if they want to have it, and maybe they can hang it inside or outdoors at an event, something like that. So it's just a proof of concept print, but this is the power of a panel. This is why we do panels, if we want a large print. And they're not just for outdoors and sceneries like we think of them. A lot of product photography actually is done with a panel, usually multi-roll panels. I've seen pictures of Jeeps, motorcycles, all kinds of things that people want blown up big for a storefront. Panel is the way to go. So hopefully this helps, and I was real happy with it. Now I'm looking forward to getting out west or getting to the lake somewhere with a nice scene and putting some panels together. If you have any questions, leave a comment or any comments on what can be done better. I would appreciate that. I'm always looking to learn, and hope you get out there and shoot some panels.